Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start the webinar now. Maybe we'll start as just so everyone knows where you're coming from, where we're coming from. We'll introduce ourselves. I'm Bill Gentles. I'm based in Canada. Wish I could come to Ghana. I was there a couple of years ago, but hopefully I'll be able to get there again next year. Perhaps we could go down the list. Martin, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Martin Pula, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of you and really enjoyed my time in Ghana. And I'm in Canada as well on the West Coast in Victoria.
Okay, and John Ziena, I'm not sure you need introductions, but just say hello to the group.
Okay, my name is John Ziena, Ghana Health Service, the Clinical Engineering Department, Ghana.
Thanks, John. Edward, can you just...
Yeah, so also my name is Edward Kokwajiman. I'm in Boko Presby Hospital as a clinical engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. Kiki, can you unmute and...
Hello, I'm IG Delanyu Kiki, Regional Equipment Manager for Upper East. Thank you.
Thank you. Ebenezer, can you unmute and introduce yourself?
Ebenezer Tiapa, Nadole District Hospital. Thank you.
John So, can you unmute?
Yes. Yes, John Enso, Upper West Regional Hospital. And then Edmond Amma, we are sitting together, Upper West Regional Hospital.
Thank you. Justice.
I'm Tumbadra Adwa Justice, War Memorial Hospital.
Thank you. And we have one new person joining us. They're just identified as user. Perhaps you could. Oh, Nana, Nyan. Can you introduce?
Hey, Davis. It's Davis. My name is Davis. Upper West Regional Hospital.
Thank you. And we have someone who's just identified as user. Can you tell us who you are and which hospital? Unmute yourself.
It is Raymond. Raymond, what?
Which hospital are you at?
Why Municipal Hospital?
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond.
Amazing.
Have I missed anybody? Anyway, thank you. We are recording this webinar, so you can play it back later on. I'm going to mute everybody during the presentation. We'll be using the chat for questions during the presentation, but we're going to leave time at the end for a question and answer period.
Okay. Mate. Let's try.
Okay. So welcome everybody. We're going to start this webinar now. The purpose of the webinar is just to walk you through the process of downloading the software, downloading the user manual, and getting started with using the software, and some introductions about some of the problems you may encounter, and we'll try and deal with all of those. Now I'm going to, let's see, change the share of the screen. I'm just going to share the screen one. and pull up the link. Now, Edward has circulated information to all of you, I hope, on the link where to access this, but I'm just going to copy this link into the chat in case anyone's had trouble finding it. Let's see, where's the chat? Lost the chat. Okay, well, I won't put it in the chat. I'm just showing that screen now. Oh, here it is. Sorry. So this is the link that we'll be using to access the software. So I'm right-clicking on the link, copy the link, and then I'm going to my browser. I use a Firefox browser, which you should see come up on your screen. And I just right-click in the search window, left-click, paste, and go. And this should take you, I believe you don't even require a Google account to get to this because it's shared for all. It'll take you to these two files on a Google Drive. And we're going to walk through the process of downloading these files. So it is suggested that you start with the user manual because there are fewer steps and it's a simpler process. So right-click on the file name, user manual, and then choose the menu item download, scanning for viruses, and then you should get a menu coming up offering where to save this on your computer. Now, it is suggested that you save this on your desktop and you create a new folder specifically for the CMMS. So that's this option here, create a new folder. And I'm going to call it Ghana CMMS. You could use any name that you find easy to remember and identify for you. So hit enter, and now I double click on that folder name. It opens the folder, which should be empty. And now you can click on save down here. And the user manual should now be in that folder. Let's see, I'll just go back to my desktop here. No, I won't. It's getting too many things on the screen here. So the next file you're going to download is called Ghana CMMS. And there's a version number and a date here. This is the current revision, today's date. Again, right click on that and download. Now this is a larger file. It's 15.2 megabytes, as you can see. So depending on your computer, it may take a while to download. And you may get this message when you try to download it, depending on which version of Windows you're running, warning you about downloading an executable file from the internet, which is always a little bit risky. In this case, you have to say download anyway, because you want to get the file. And that download will start now. It'll take you to the same folder, Ghana CMMS, on the desktop. So you don't have to go through the process that we did for the user manual, because it just takes you to what the last folder you were using. So now all you have to do is click Save. And I'm going to close this window. Just and go to the desktop. Now my desktop is a bit busy, but over here you can see a folder, Ghana CMMS, that I've created on my desktop. And we'll just move it around so it's in the middle. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is open that folder. But there's a little more work before you can use the database file. Again, Windows is very protective of users regarding files downloaded from the internet. So we're going to have to make one more modification to this file. I've right-clicked on the file name for the database. This gives you this drop-down menu in Windows. We want to go to the properties of that file. And this is what should come up when you do that. And there is something down at the bottom here. Security. This file came from another computer and might be blocked to help protect this computer. So we have to unblock that file or it won't run properly. So this is covered in the user manual, which if you go through this, you'll see all of this procedure outlined. So you click on unblock, then click on apply, and then OK. So now it should be possible for you to run this database program, assuming you have Microsoft Access installed on your computer. So this is the file suffix here is ACCDB, which recognizes Microsoft Access as the program that will run it. So I'm just going to double click on this file now, left click twice, and it will open the following window. Let me just move it over to the screen that I'm sharing. So just confirming that you can see that. This is the welcoming screen. There are a few things just to point out. There's a message up on the bar here. Save your changes to the SharePoint site. Now I don't have a SharePoint site. I'm assuming most of you don't, but whether you do or not, I'm just going to close that message because it doesn't really mean anything. You should see this on your screen. Welcome to the Ghana Health Service Clinical Engineering CMMS. Log in to continue your session. So we've entered the names of all the engineers in the Upper East and Upper West region who attended the training session that GMH put on about a month ago that Martin Poulin participated in. So when you get to this screen, first you want to identify yourself to the program by clicking on this down arrow here, and you'll see a list in alphabetical order of all of the engineers. and it's alphabetical by first name. So your name should appear on this list. If it doesn't appear on this list, you can, there's a procedure to add it to the list, which I'll explain a bit later. So you can identify yourself as temporary CE staff. The password, we're using the same password for everyone at this point. It's lowercase letters GMH, standing for Ghana Medical Help. Once you've entered that password, just click on this button and it will take you to the next screen. Now, depending on which region you come from, when you first use this, these are the defaults that will be used by the database to identify which hospital this equipment belongs to and who's entered the information. You may need to change these, but this will only be necessary the first time you use the program. So since I'd already used this program to test it out, I entered this information. So let's just change these to a different hospital. We'll go to the Upper East, pick the district, Bolgatanga Municipal, pick the hospital, Bolgatanga Regional. Now, it's important to do these in the order shown, because once you pick the region, then the next drop-down menu only shows you the districts for that region. So the database tries to keep things as simple as possible, but you have to do things in the right order for that to be helpful. And then once you pick the district, the database will only show you the hospitals that we have listed for that district. And then temp CE stuff. So I'll just change this to, just to show that you can, again, unfortunately, you may have to enter this information twice. I've got my initials in there. So we'll say that I'm working at this hospital right now. Every piece of work that I identify, just admitting John Idan to the webinar. I'll let John Idan join us before I continue. Welcome, John. No, his audio is not connected yet. Okay, well, maybe having difficulty getting his audio working. So I'll just continue. Once you've verified that all of these are correct for your hospital and your name, click on Next, and this takes you to the main dashboard in the program. It'll show today's date. Welcome, John. Oh, I've just sent the link to download this software into the chat. Okay, we're now at the main dashboard for the program. And you have 4 different options you can pursue. The only one we're going to talk about in any detail today is asset registers. So, because the first thing you want to do as you're using the database is to collect inventory information on the equipment in your hospital. So collecting inventory information is under the asset register functions. Now, if you didn't find your name listed on that drop-down list and you entered your name as a temporary staff, there is a function I'll just point to briefly. You can go to admin background data, and then it'll bring you to this menu where you can add a new staff name. So this is available to anyone using the software. You can add a new staff name. Maybe you have an assistant who's going to help you take some of the inventory and they're not in the list. You can click on this to add a CE staff name, put your full name, create a password, choose a region that the staff worked in, and then go back. So that's add the name and go back, and then it will be on the list the next time you log into the software. But I'm not going to enter that data right now. It's very similar to some of the other menu boxes, but I'm going to go back to the main dashboard screen. Now we'll talk about taking inventory information. So we go into Asset Register Actions. And before we get to adding equipment to the inventory, you have three choices here. You can add new equipment to the inventory. You can edit a single item of equipment. Maybe you've entered something and then you got more information on it at a later date. So you want to go back and just edit that one. But then you can also view the complete inventory list with this button. But we'll start with this first button because that's the one you would use most often when you're taking inventory. So if I click on that button, it will take me to the following form. Now this form is where you enter inventory information on each item of equipment that you're tagging in your hospital. And I should just point out that the requirement to do this tagging is that you get a set of these barcode labels issued to you by, maybe we can verify that Kiki was the one producing these the last time we did this, but maybe Kiki can interject if that situation has changed. You get a specific set of labels that identify your hospital and they have sequential numbering on them. And those are the numbers you will enter into this box called equipment number. So when you're using a database program, the database program needs to identify each entry with a unique identifier so that it's distinguished from any other information in the database. So each equipment has to have a unique identifier. Now, there are three boxes here that I'm going to talk about briefly, but the equipment number that you get from that's on the barcode label is what you enter into this yellow box. Now, up here it says boxes in yellow are mandatory. That doesn't mean if you don't enter that information, you'll be prevented from saving the data, but it's important. Perhaps I should change that wording to boxes in yellow are the most important items of information. So you can leave equipment number as 0 and it will still accept information, but then it's kind of, and some people do this for like items of furniture. They just leave them all as equipment number 0, but then they're all masked together under the same equipment ID, and it's very hard to tell which is which because they're all listed under the same inventory number when you display an inventory report. I'll just talk about these other two boxes briefly, but this first box called ID is just an internal number that the database uses to keep track of its records. You don't need to pay any attention to that or ignore it. It's a number that I use for troubleshooting problems with the database, but it's not of any use to frontline users. So just talk about the other box here, which is called old inventory number. Now, you may have had a previous exercise where, or someone else in your institution, like the purchasing department or the finance department, may have tagged equipment with inventory labels. And that's often the case in many hospitals, that there are multiple departments within the organization who are taking, keeping track of inventory. So there may be other tags on the equipment. They may or may not have barcodes on them, but they should have identifiable, readable numbers. You could enter those here. Just that gives you a cross-reference between an old inventory number and the new number, which you're going to enter here. So I'm just going to enter an arbitrary number here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go on and start entering, filling in all the yellow boxes here. So we have 2 ways to describe the equipment. We have a list in the database of items of equipment that have been previously entered by others who've used this database prior to the group who's on the webinar today. So we have a drop-down list here of the common names that are used in Ghana. So we can, and it's an alphabetical list by the first word in the description. And the one that will come up at the top is unknown, because we always have an unknown as a choice in this webinar, but it's actually an alphabetical list starting with A. So we can see here that there are a lot of different autoclaves. There are 2 different fields here. One is the common name, which might be the everyday name that frontline staff would use to describe the device. Then we have, in the second column, something that refers to as a standardized nomenclature system called UMDNS, which stands for the Universal Medical Device Nomenclature System. And this is an international system of nomenclature for medical devices that's used around the world. So we've added these specific names just to give a bit more information about a device. So if you look at autoclaves, we have some more specific information on the right-hand side that would allow you to choose the correct device. For instance, is it dry heat? Is it steam? Is it a bulk autoclave? Is it a tabletop autoclave? I'm just going to go down to centrifuges, because that again will give you another illustration of there are many, many centrifuges here.
Hey, Bill, it's Martin here.
Martin, yes.
Could you zoom in? Because many people are on their phone, so it's hard. It'll be hard for them to see what you're showing.
Ah, okay. Let me just.
I wonder if it's possible to zoom in, so because it'll be very hard to see that what you're pointing at.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't do that on this.
If you hold the control key down and use your mouse roller, it should zoom out.
Yeah, it's not
Not working.
Doesn't work for access.
Oh, great.
Yeah, if I was in Word or something, and I could do that in the user manual. Let me see. I could pull up. Let me pull up the user manual, which I have in a Word document. I'm going to drag it over to the screen. Drag it over to my shared screen. Where I've got some of these windows illustrated and I can zoom into them. Okay. Okay, so I'm,
Sorry, I can't see the user manual yet. Oh, there it is.
did it come
Gotcha.
up? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Okay,
had
yeah,
to-
no, that'd be better if you can zoom in.
So let's see if Control Plus works for this. No, so let me go to Word and zoom in. Is that a bit better?
Anybody on the line? Is that a little bit better? Can you see a bit better now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, John.
So, okay, what I've done in the user manual, this is illustrated by, we've chosen hospital bed. When you choose a common name, it automatically fills in the UMDNS name. As I showed you when I was actually using the live database, there were two columns. When you click on this down arrow, you get two columns, and the left-hand column shows the common name, the right-hand column shows the UMDNS name. And once you choose an item, it fills in both of these boxes, this one and the next one. Now, once you've finished with that, you should go to the next box, which is the manufacturer. Again, it's a pull-down list listed alphabetically, and you can choose a manufacturer. There's also a button here. If you don't find the manufacturer in the list, you can click on this button and it will take you to a new screen where you can add the name of a manufacturer that's not found in the database. Now, if you're going to do that, you should perhaps discuss that. There's a problem that databases get into if you make a spelling mistake or a typo error. So be very careful if you're adding a new manufacturer name that double check it before you save it, because other people are going to use that. And we've noticed that sometimes some of these entries have spelling mistakes or typo errors in them. So it's important to be careful. Otherwise, you may get 2 or 3 different names for the same manufacturer, just spelled slightly differently, and that would cause confusion. So it's important to make sure these are accurately entered. So then the next box that is highlighted is the serial number. You could fill in model number, model name, if you have that information. It would help to narrow down identifying the equipment. It's most important to put in the serial number because that's what uniquely identifies that particular item. Now, the next box is the user department. So this is, again, a pull-down list, which should cover most of the user departments in most hospitals. But again, you have the option to add a new user department by clicking on this button if you don't find it in the list. Now, there are to narrow down the location of the device, we first identify the department, which is a predefined list of departments, but then the next box is location. And that is a free text entry. So you can put anything you want in here. If it's, for instance, the operating theater, here you might put theater number 2 to get more specific about the location of that device. Okay, moving on. Now, some of these will be filled in automatically by the database. And this example is slightly different from the live example I was previously using. This is in the user manual. So you can fill in country of origin by a drop-down list if you know it. It's not necessary to do that, but it would be helpful. And then equipment condition. This is a very important. It's one of the things that we try to emphasize when you're taking inventory. Don't just take inventory of all the equipment that's in active service. We want to also know, and it's useful for some of the reports you can generate, to document all the equipment that is currently not in service, but is perhaps broken and repairable. So you can issue a report showing how much equipment currently is awaiting repair. Maybe it's waiting for spare parts. Maybe you've just got a backlog of repairs because you're understaffed. It can help you justify or explain why you're having trouble keeping up with all the repairs. So that's very important to document, not just working and equipment that's in service, but there's a pull down list here. You have several other options for equipment condition. Then you can here add any free text comments you want. If the common name of the equipment, for instance, wasn't in the list, again, we don't offer you the option of adding common names here because that's a very critical item of data, and if you can't find it there, you should enter it into the comments. If it's some unusual piece of equipment that's not in our list of common names, enter that information here, and then we can use that later on to update our list of common names. Now that's all the important information you can add to give a complete picture of inventory items. There are a couple of other windows I will point out to you that, for example, name of staff entering data. So it's important that we document who was taking the inventory, because there may be questions later on if some of the information is ambiguous or incomplete, or the location's changed. It's important that it's documented who entered that inventory information. So that is automatically entered by the database. It's the name of the person who logged in to the database in the latest implementation. You also have down here a bunch of tabs, and the first tab just shows the institution, again, which is, we call that the default. That's the institution that you told the database you were working in. And so it just fills in this automatically for you. But there are also tabs here for project information, maintenance provider, supplier, and any manuals that may have been provided with the device. And this is especially important if you're documenting a brand new device that's just been received. It's important to make a note of any user or service manuals that have been received, and that's available under this tab where you can document them. Now, there are two other windows I'll just point out here. You have the opportunity to enter here a link to a photograph of the device. If it's an unusual device that maybe you've never seen before, it's something brand new, it's the first time this device has been brought into the hospital. I've just illustrated this with a picture of a hospital bed, but you wouldn't need to do that for hospital beds or other common items of equipment like oxygen concentrators. But unusual equipment, you might want to have a photograph. when you click on this window, it takes you to another screen where you can enter a link to a photograph that has to be stored in the computer somewhere. So you can't just take a photograph and paste it in here. You have to have the photograph stored, preferably in the same folder where this database file is. And then this allows you to enter a link to that photograph. There's another opportunity to enter links here. If you've got PPM procedures that are in a Word document or a PDF file or a user manual, you can double click here and enter a link to the file where that information is stored. So that's, I'm going to go out of this Word document now and go back to the live database, just to illustrate some of the things I've been talking about. Let me see if I can do this without causing too much confusion. Let me just look at the chat here. Yes, please type your questions in the chat. Okay, please zoom in. All right, sorry. I am trying now to close the Word window. Let me just see if I can do that. Okay.
Yeah, I'd also suggest if people can just unmute or put their hand up or unmute their mic and ask a question of what Bill has presented at this stage, or if you've been trying the database and you have something that's you're not clear on, this is your forum to ask questions. Anybody have some specific questions for Bill?
I'll just go and add these items that were similar to the things that were shown in the manual. So
Ebenezer has his hand up, Bill.
Okay.
Can you unmute him?
Yes.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Okay. It's like my network is worrying me, so I didn't get the explanation on the risk score. Thank you.
Oh, information on the risk score, Bill?
Risk score, yes. We haven't talked about that, but that's used, and Martin talked a bit about scheduling planned preventive maintenance and using the risk score to help you decide how often you should be performing maintenance on a particular device. So at the current time, we're not, the program doesn't make active use of this, but I believe, Martin, maybe you can talk about how you use the risk score to assign PPM intervals. Over to you.
So we utilize the World Health Organization guidance on risk score, and that was something that I presented at the conference. But I wonder, I probably can get you some summary information with respect to that scoring system. But essentially, it's a risk score of 1 implies it's a critical device. A risk score of 2 is that it's a moderate risk device, which we call normal risk. And 3 would be no real risk, and that it doesn't require regular preventive maintenance. So I can, but if you're entering data right now, Ebenezer, you can, if it's an anesthesia machine, or a ventilator, I would call that a risk 1. If it's a patient monitor or oxygen concentrator, I would call that a risk 2. And a risk 3 would be something like a bed or, something that doesn't require, that is quite a simple device. But let me take away an action to send you something, or at least put something on the GMH clinical engineers WhatsApp to give you a bit more guidance in that respect.
Okay, and that will come up when we talk a bit more about the maintenance activities related to the database, which is a separate webinar that we'll be giving next month, talking about entering maintenance. Now, I'm just going to go through here just to make sure you can see how this works, even though it may be too small on your screen if you're using a phone. So when I click on this drop-down menu, if you recall in the user manual, it was Hillrom. So I'll just enter that as the manufacturer of this hospital bed. Serial number. I just enter an arbitrary number there. User department. So just to change things here, I'm going to assign this to the operating room, and then in the next one, I'll say room 1. Typically, we number our operating rooms. You might have more specific information there, like orthopedics or ophthalmology or whatever. But there's just one other pull-down menu I wanted to show you, which is equipment condition. So there are a number of choices here. And I think this is a very important piece of information to document. Is it in active service? Is it broken but repairable? Is it inactive and in storage? So people have just stopped using it for whatever reason. Is it retired but available for parts? So perhaps you can no longer get spare parts, but you've taken a piece of broken equipment and now you're going to scavenge parts from it to keep other items in that fleet working. Or is it retired and disposed of? So even if something is taken out of service, retired, and put in the garbage, sent to landfill or whatever, it's important to still keep that information in the database to document. It has all the information on the lifetime of that equipment, assuming you've been using the database for a while, and it can show you the service history and how reliable that device was. If you're making decisions about purchasing a new device, once you start storing or recording maintenance information on this equipment, you begin to develop a picture of which pieces of equipment are less reliable, having more breakdowns, requiring more service, more expensive to maintain. This is extremely valuable data that can help administration make decisions about procuring new equipment, or make decisions about rejecting donations from charitable organizations that are trying to give you something that is really quite unreliable and would be very expensive for you to maintain. So this is extremely valuable information that helps you to increase your importance to the health system in Ghana by allowing you to help the decision makers make more informed decisions on equipment. And I think that's where I'll stop, and we'll just leave it open to any questions. We're getting close to the top of the hour. We don't want to run over the hour because people's time is important. So any other questions, please raise your hand. We'll have another webinar in about a month's time where we'll talk about the next item on the equipment. But let me just go back here. While we're waiting for questions, I just want to show you one other in this inventory action form. You can look at the complete inventory list. So I'll just click on this and it shows you a summary list of all of the equipment. So we just entered this item with equipment number 12345, which is a hospital bed by Hill-Rom, serial number 54321. It's in the operating room and one. Now, on this screen, you can look at a summary of all the equipment you've entered. You can also edit some of the columns in this form. And you can sort also if you had a large list of equipment and you just wanted to look at, say, your hospital beds. In my application, I can right-click on this column. Maybe it doesn't work here. Right-click on a column entry and choose sort. That's interesting. We can use the menu up above to actually sort. So if I filter on just hospital beds, for example, I filter on hospital beds and click OK. It now reduces this list to just the hospital beds that have been entered. So if you've got a long list of equipment and you only want to look at something specific, using this filter up here will allow you to narrow the list down to one specific category of items. Then you can remove the sort and go back to the list, the complete list. I just wanted to show you that as one of the things that can help you once you've entered a lot of equipment. You want to go back and just check on the complete list. That's a quick way to do it. Going back here, we get to the main form, and that's all we're going to talk about today. In the next webinar, we'll talk about logging maintenance information using this work log button here. In another webinar, we'll talk about the reports you can generate, but that's all for today. Any questions, please put up your hand or turn on your mic.
So Bill, Raymond had just asked in the chat about what to do if you can't find a manufacturer's information on the device. And I've just responded that you could leave it identified as unknown.
Right. Yes. Yeah. There are some devices may be hard to identify some of that information. And there's always, in these drop-down menus, there's always the option to enter unknown as the descriptor for that drop-down menu.
And just a question about format. I appreciate many of you are on your phone. Is that correct? And is it difficult to see the screen because it's small? Is that the situation? I wonder if anybody can comment if they can see well enough.
Yeah, it's very small. We struggle to see because we are using our phone.
Yes, that's what I thought. So Bill, we might need to use just more examples from the user manual, I think, and really blow them up so that in the next session, people can see a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Martin.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Yes, even though it's small, I think you can bolden it or zoom it out to see or follow what he's doing. I think it's not that bad.
Not that bad. Okay. Okay,
Oh.
very good. Because it's even small for me and I have a big monitor.
You pull it out to
My
follow what
eyes are older than yours though, John.
that's fine.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. And one of the things I'll create another version of the database where all of the text is bigger. Because it seems that it's not feasible within Microsoft Access to zoom into your windows.
Yes, I know. I saw that as well. I tried it and I didn't know what to do. Ebenezer had his hand up briefly. Did you have a question, Ebenezer?
Yeah, but yes, you go ahead then. Let me put my questions together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but the solution, if you're using a phone, you can use Zoom function on the phone to blow up what you're seeing on the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, that's a good point. I can, in the next amendment of this database, I'm going to make all the text, I'll double all the font sizes to make them bigger. So even if you're using a laptop with a small screen, you should make it more visible. Thanks for that suggestion.
And we don't have a date yet for the next session, but we'll advertise that on the WhatsApp group. And if you have questions in the meantime, please put them on the WhatsApp group communication portal, and either of us will be able to answer for you.
Okay, and I'm going to start, I'll stop the recording. And